one trend that I've started to see more and more frequently in the last year is this sort of collapsing of marketing and development departments, which I think is a really good thing. And um, while in some cases it might have been because of efficiencies, laying off staff or wanting to reduce the number of staff, by and large, I think that this trend is about recognizing that we have to deal with our constituencies as whole people, right? We can't, kind of objectify them into sales targets and donor targets, but rather we really want our organization to, arts organizations want to have a relationship with the whole individual, and that it's not useful to have these silos, perhaps, given what it is we're in the business of doing, which is not just selling widgets. And so I think that's a really interesting trend. Another, I think, is the acknowledgement, and this really probably has come out of the recent economic downturn, that smaller might in fact be better, not just in the short term, but in the long run. I think I see arts organizations beginning to drop programs that never were really core to their mission, but that they had perhaps developed because there was a little bit of funding out there to support them. I think that this is in part related to a trend among funders who are also, it seems, doing less, a shift away from spreading the money out in a variety of ways to lots of organizations, to really focusing resources and making more meaningfully sized grants. As a result, I think it's kind of given organizations permission to say, you know what, if we can't get any money for this, let's just go ahead and drop it. And I think out of that, they're finding a clarity that perhaps it's better to just focus on what they can do well, and better to be of a size, right-sized perhaps, that feels more sustainable. The third trend, I would say, is an awareness that the audiences, this is, I would say, specifically, well, I guess both museums and performing arts, that the audiences or patrons' point of view about the art is worth listening to. When I was at an organization called On the Boards, prior to coming to the foundation, we started a patron review blog more than 5 years ago now. So we were among the first organizations to do something like this. And at the time, we were talking it up to other organizations, and there was huge resistance, right? Like, oh, what if people say negative things? But more importantly, I think that a lot of the resistance to this was actually an underlying belief that maybe we don't even really trust what patrons have to say as being valid. And I think this is shifting. I mean, lately I see a lot of arts organizations beginning to find ways to get input from their audience members. I just saw an article in a journal, field journal, the other day. It's like, hey, patron reviews, what an idea. And I thought, well, it's now sort of really part of the culture, I think, to think about doing that. It no longer seems like a radical idea, and I think it's as much because people recognize that it does bring patrons closer to the organization, but also I think they're sincerely beginning to care about what patrons think, and think that point of view can be valid. And I think that's a really interesting and good trend.